guest this week on Veterans Chronicles is U.S. Army Staff Sergeant James Pierce, a veteran of both Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. He joins us now to discuss his service to the United States in uniform, his difficult recovery from serious wounds suffered in Afghanistan, and his work now with the National Park Service and specifically the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial. And James, thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Where were you born and raised?
So I was actually born in Gretna, Louisiana. Lived there for about 9 years, and then I moved up to High Point, North Carolina.
When did you join the service?
Oh gosh, I joined March 23rd of 2001, my senior year at Eastern Randolph High School.
So that's about 6 months before 9/11. What were you hoping to get out of that experience before 9/11, and how did that change after the attack?
So one of the things that really compelled me to join the Army National Guard was my high school ROTC teacher. His name was Command Sergeant Major Faust, and he was just an outstanding man, an outstanding leader, and an outstanding warrior. He was in Special Forces, and he really kind of guided and directed me into to joining and serving.
So when you graduated from high school, what did that mean? Where did you go from there?
So I got accepted to Appalachian State University, and I started, fall semester of 2001.
Okay. And were you doing ROTC there, or how did that work?
Yes, it was.
Okay. What did that mean in terms of training? Were you a weekend warrior at that point? What did it mean in terms of being part of the Army National Guard?
So at that time, I was getting ready to go to basic and AIT. I took the second semester off my freshman year at Appalachian State University to attend basic and AIT.
Okay. And what did that consist of?
At that time, I was field artillery. So I was a 13 Mike, and was it 8-9 weeks at basic training, and then 4 weeks for MLRS, which is Multiple Launch Rocket System.
Okay. Did you like it?
It was cool. It was fun.
So as time went on, we not only, of course, were fighting in Afghanistan. By the spring of 2003, we were also fighting in Iraq. What did that mean for you?
So a very vivid image comes to mind whenever I was sitting in my dorm room at Appalachian State University, is whenever I watched the towers fall. I realized kind of what signing on the dotted line meant and where I was going to have to go shortly after basic and AIT.
And where did you go?
So my junior year of college, I was deployed to Iraq in 2000. I was brought on active duty in 2004, December 28th, so just a couple days after Christmas.
And where were you deployed in Iraq with your unit, with the field artillery?
So it was field artillery, but we were reclassed to 88 Mikes, and we were actually stationed in Camp Arif John in Kuwait, and we did long-haul missions all the way up and down Iraq, delivering supplies.
That got to be pretty harrowing.
A little bit.
How would you prepare for that?
I don't know. I remember my very first mission in Iraq. I called my dad whenever we got up to, I believe it was Diamondback, and our convoy had been hit. And I remember telling him, I was like, I don't know if this is a place I want to be at. And I was pretty scared. But, everything worked out all right.
Was that, how long were you there, first of all? On this tour?
A year.
For a year. So you're there mostly in 2005,
mm-hmm.
which was a pretty rough year in terms of the insurgency rising up. And so I'm guessing routes through the Iron Triangle and that sort of area were particularly harrowing. You mentioned the convoy that got hit. Was that something that happened multiple times or not?
The very first one, it just comes to mind. That was my very first mission, so it was a little just scary, I guess you could say.
How did you respond to it, not only just in that moment, but also as you went on future convoys?
The first one just opened my eyes and said, oh wow, this is real. This is really going on. You know, you spend months and years and everything that you think of preparing for that moment, but when it happens, it's like, well, it's just kind of eye-opening.
How would you describe the camaraderie when you're in that environment and there's that much on the line?
What comes to mind to me is something immediately that just happened last week. So a guy that I went to Iraq with, his name is Jason Ford. He posted on Facebook last week that he was homeless. He needed a place to stay. I had some contacts in Wilmington, North Carolina, and he should be getting a house and some transportation this next week.
It's a relationship that doesn't just last for the tour. It lasts forever.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Congratulations to you and to him for being aware of that and acting on that. So, what else stands out to you from your year in Iraq, in addition to the work on the convoys?
I don't really know. I mean, I guess the first thing that really comes to mind is, I guess you would say, your camaraderie. One of my friends that was my roommate at Appalachian State and also in Iraq, Kevin Che, I just flew out to Hawaii to go see him 2 weeks ago. And so I went and spent a week at Hawaii. And unfortunately, I wanted him to be my best man in my wedding, but he couldn't. But that's just what kind of comes to mind.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Was it difficult to know that there was political turmoil going on while you were serving there, back here, about the Iraq War? Does that enter in at all, or are you so focused on protecting yourself and your brothers in arms that that just doesn't enter in?
Honestly and truthfully, I didn't even think about it. It's just not something you think about. You have one job, and that's to make it back alive, and that's it.
So you were done in, I guess, at the end of 2005, roughly?
2006. September 16th of 2006.
Oh, it's almost 2 years.
I'm close to it.
After all. So then what happened? Where did you go from there?
So I decided to go back to Appalachian State and finish up my degree in Parks and Recreation, and went back and did some more ROTC.
Okay. And you graduated when?
August of 2009.
Okay. And you're still in the service at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And was next the humanitarian mission or the tour to Afghanistan?
Humanitarian mission. So my unit, the 211th MP Company out of Clyde, North Carolina, got stationed down in El Salvador for, we went on rotations for 3 weeks at a time.
Okay. And what was the mission there?
Basically, physical security.
For the El Salvador government or for our own people? Or who?
So we were protecting our own guys down there. So
Okay.
we were protecting the Navy Seabees. We were building a school, a road, and refurbishing a municipality, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a side of the United States military that people are clearly aware of, but they don't think of when they think of the military in general. Usually it's being prepared to engage in combat. What do you want folks to know about the commitment to the humanitarian side and what you've seen personally on that front?
Can we come back to that one?
Sure, absolutely. Let's move to Afghanistan then. When were you sent there with the military police unit?
So right after that, I switched units to 514th Military Police Company literally that next week, and then I went out to NTC in California and roughly straight to Afghanistan right after that.
And that's obviously where things took a very significant turn in your life. Explain what was happening on October 1st, 2012.
So basically, I was doing a dismounted patrol in the city of Khost, Afghanistan. We were basically just walking through the city, and then whenever we stopped to do a TCP, which is a traffic control point, and a guy came up, a blue on green incident, Afghanistan police officer came up and then blew himself up.
Near you and several others, right?
Yes, so it killed 3 of my teammates and wounded 3, which I was one of the ones wounded.
Did you notice this as he was approaching people in your unit?
Yes, so I was guarding my little section of the pie, but basically he came out and the cadet commander started screaming, and I turned around, and as I was turning around, he blew himself up. So that's why I have all my injuries on my left side. Whenever he blew himself up, it blew me on my back, and then I set up, and then the guy's head came up and hit me in the head. And whenever it rolled off, I just remember looking at his eyes were like kind of bulged out, and his tongue was kind of hanging there, and it's like, this is real. This just happened.
Then what? I mean, there were others injured, there were others killed. So how does the unit deal with that unexpected event?
I looked to my right, and I remember seeing Jeremy Hardison. Unfortunately, he passed away. But whenever I saw him, he was scooting himself on his hands and trying to get into a tactical position. And I thought he would be okay, which is kind of crazy. Out of all the people that did, make it, I figured I was going to die because I got hit right there in the jugular, and it was bleeding up to about the ceiling right there. And I mean, you all have basic first aid, and And I said, this is it for me.
So what did you do about it?
Oh, I didn't do anything. I just I cocked my weapon and was like, all right, let's go. If I'm going down, I want to go down fighting. So
Somebody must have gotten to you fairly quickly.
yes. The medic ran past me, and then my guy, my team member, came up. His name was Bullard, and the first thing he did, I was on fire, so he put me out. It's like, we're good, so let's go.
At what point did you realize the severity of your injuries, not just your blood flow, but and the burns, but everything, the whole totality of what had happened to you?
It immediately hit me the moment. So whenever I was blown back and I sat up, I tried to stand up and my leg went sideways, and I fell down, and just the pure amount of pain, it was excruciating. I knew I was in a bad place real quick.
James, we'll pick up your story in just a moment. More with U.S. Army Staff Sergeant James Pierce, veteran of Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom, on Veterans Chronicles. Welcome back to Veterans Chronicles on the Radio America Network. I'm Greg Corumbus, honored to be joined in studio today by James Pierce. He's a U.S. Army veteran of the Iraq War as well as Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. We were just talking about the severe wounds that he suffered in 2012 in Coast Afghanistan as he was serving with a military police unit there. When we paused the conversation, he was headed to Germany for medical treatment and probably the early stages of rehabilitation. So that's where we left off the story. James, pick it up from there. What's the first thing you do remember once you got to Germany?
I don't really remember anything in Germany, but one of the things that I do remember before getting to Germany, and only because of the pictures, but basically the Command Sergeant Major of the Army awarded me the Purple Heart right before I left for Germany, which was pretty cool. And
so then from Germany, I assume you were sent to a military hospital here. Which one was that?
So from what I was told, I went from Germany to Walter Reed.
Okay.
I think I spent about 3 days in Germany, if I'm not mistaken.
And how long were you at Walter Reed?
3 years.
Wow. What are your first memories of understanding what was happening there?
One of the fondest memories I have is probably the plane flight from Germany to Walter Reed. Is because the vibrations of the plane, it was very extensive on the way over, and it just drove me crazy.
What kind of therapies did they begin with you? What was their first priority?
So the first set was putting into ICU. I was in ICU, I want to say like 3 or 4 days, and that's whenever I want to say my parents got there after about 3 or 4 days. I didn't even recognize them because they were all in medical coats, and that wasn't for them. They were in coats, but not because of them. For me, it was me for them, because I had so much stuff in my system, which was kind of crazy.
At what point did you start to see progress and get optimism?
I think it was probably about my 9th surgery. I went to 9 surgeries back to back to back while I was there. After the last one, they said everything is good, you're good to go, so now we're going to start rehab right afterwards. So about maybe a month or 2.
During that process, was there any particular dark time, realizing this has happened to me, I don't want this to have happened to me, I don't know what my life's going to look like on the other side of this? Or did you make up your mind pretty quickly that step by step this was the way forward?
I guess a hidden blessing was in the fact that my orthopedic surgeon said you'll never run again. And I'm pretty stubborn, so I immediately thought to myself, the hell I will, guy. I don't know who you are, but I'll show you.
What was the rehab like once those surgeries were done?
That was intense. That was really intense. Well, an aspect about it that was really frustrating for me is to see the amputees, because the amputees healed much faster than the guys who were fortunate enough to keep their limbs. And so that was probably the hardest thing that I had to deal with.
Would it be the burn wounds that were the toughest ones to heal? Was it other injuries? What was the ones that took the longest and gave you the most frustration?
I wasn't burned, but some of the guys that were burned, it's pretty difficult. There's lots of skin grafts, and everybody was very unique.
What about for you? What was the injury that that nagged at you the most?
Taking shrapnel in the ankle, and so your ankle is probably the most versatile bone in your body, and not be able to stand, not be able to use the restroom, just walking. I mean, walking took me about 6 to 7 months afterwards. Even walking was extreme pain, just the pain.
Even though it was painful, what was it like when you could finally take a step?
I don't really know. All I remember is going to crutches and how hard it was, just walking around. It's like there's this little bitty hill at Walter Reed. It seemed like the biggest hill in the world. Just walking up that thing, it's like, oh my God.
How long was it before you could walk without that kind of pain?
Whenever they put me in a program with it's called the IDEO, endoscopic dynamic exoskeleton. They flew me down to Bamsey, Texas, and then I was a good candidate for that program. And I went from basically 0 to 60, walking on crutches to running the 40 meters in like 6 seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the surgeon who told you wouldn't run again?
I did, yes, I did.
Did you do a wind sprint for him?
I did do some high knees in the hallway, I'm not going to lie to you.
I bet he was happy to be wrong.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, James, we're going to take another quick break here. When we come back on Veterans Chronicles, we'll learn a little bit more about the rehabilitation of Sergeant Pierce. We'll learn about how he decided to redirect his life following those significant injuries, and the important work he's doing now with the National Park Service, and specifically with the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial. So we'll be right back. This is Veterans Chronicles. Welcome back to Veterans Chronicles on the Radio America Network. Our guest today in studio is James Pierce, veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. We've just been talking about his grueling rehabilitation from significant injuries suffered in Afghanistan. And James, you talked about your time at Walter Reed. You talked about the amazing technology that helped you move around with far less pain down in San Antonio. When did you actually get out of the hospital, and what was that like for you?
So the first time that comes to mind is whenever my uncle flew up from Florida, and I was still hooked up to IVs, and they put me in a motorized wheelchair, and I went outside for the first time, which was it was pretty refreshing. That was the very first time.
When you were finally released and you could re-enter life as best as you knew it, what was that moment like for you?
So I retired from the military in August 5th of 2015. So that was kind of bittersweet. I didn't really want to give up my my service, but I found a good job with the National Park Service, so it was time for me to move on to bigger and better things.
That was kind of, from what I've read about you, that was kind of the dilemma about how to continue serving your country given the limitations you had following your injuries, and your degree in Parks and Recreation and your love for America coincided into this perfect opportunity. And I'm going to make sure I mention Operation Warfighter. Explain how you learned about that and what that eventually led to.
Yes, so I was actually still in Walter Reed, still in a wheelchair whenever I heard about Operation Warfighter, and you can do an internship with the National Park Service. I had a degree in Parks and Recreation from Appalachian State, and it was a natural fit. I went straight to the transitional coordinator. I said I would like to be a park ranger for an internship, but she told me to calm down and wait till I started walking again, and then we could possibly make something happen.
So what happened once you were able to walk into the office?
So it took me a couple months afterwards, but we started a kind of a grueling process through the Operation Warfighter side. And roughly around 5 interviews, and after that I was the first one placed nationwide.
Which led to what?
Full-time job, permanent position with the National Park Service.
Right here in Washington?
Sure.
And where were you assigned within the National Park Service?
So I'm a park ranger / volunteer coordinator for National Mall Memorial Parks.
Okay, so that means you're versatile and can handle a lot of different sites and a lot of different duties, or do you have certain specialties?
What I'd like to say is I'm a jack of all trades, but a master of none.
What do you find yourself spending the most time doing?
Painting and mulching.
Okay.
It's probably our biggest top 2 projects.
And I mentioned it at the beginning of the show and also heading out of the last segment, and that's the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial, which obviously I would assume has special meaning for you.
Yes, I was there on the dedication of, I believe it was October 5th of 2014, where President Obama came out, and Secretary Sally Jewell actually gave me a nice little shout out while we were down there. So that was it's pretty memorable.
I would imagine so. It's not often you get your name mentioned from podium with the presidential seal, probably,
No.
that she was speaking off of. So, what does the memorial itself mean to you, given what you've been through and so many others that you served with?
What's really unique about the memorial is the fact that it's dedicated to living wounded service members, and I am a living wounded service member. So it's being there on dedication and being able to take care of it. And to go back to what we originally talked about is my transition from wanting to, protecting America, then holding on to its values as another job, which is pretty cool.
Do you get the chance to visit with visitors to the memorial sometimes and share your story?
Yes, so twice a month we actually have a wall washing program where we come in and we'll wash the glass panels.
What kind of interaction have you had with some of the people who just came to see it and happened to meet you and hear your story? What's that been like for you, and what do you think the impact has been on them?
One of the coolest instances that I had, I got to speak to 150 Purple Heart recipients at the memorial. I told them my service, and most of them were Korea and World War II veterans. Being able to stand up on a little podium and command and control that many Purple Heart recipients, and to have them just listen to your story and it matter, and seeing how many, what they gave for the country and listen to their stories was very moving.
Tell folks where it is in Washington.
So it's right next to the Rayburn building.
So right on Capitol Hill.
I don't know the address off the top of my head.
It's over there on the house side of Capitol Hill. If you can get to Capitol Hill, somebody will be able to direct you there. I'm sure the Capitol Police could help you out, or someone else. Tell us a little bit more about what you do with the National Park Service and why it means a lot to you to work for them.
So last year I had about over 200 groups come in to volunteer for the National Park Service, and I guess you would say that the best rewarding factor that I have is simple fact that we have the nation's most iconic war memorials there. The Korean, the Vietnam, and the World War II. To have volunteers to come in and give back to their country, not only are they giving back to their community, to the National Park Service, but to this great nation which so many people have fought and died for. And to me, that means everything.
Based on your experience, do you believe that most Americans have an understanding and appreciation of what disabled veterans have gone through? We're obviously at a time when we have an all-volunteer force now, and a lot of American families don't have anyone in the service, and in some cases they might not even know anyone in the service. Obviously, America's appreciation in general for those who have served is infinitely better than it was 40 years ago. So do you believe that there's the proper level of recognition for the sacrifice that's been made and what disabled veterans are still going through? Or as Iraq and Afghanistan slip from the headlines, people perhaps don't think about it as much?
That's a good question. In my situation, I've definitely received the thank yous and the blessings. I don't really know how to answer that question.
I asked you a question a little bit earlier in our conversation. You said to come back to it, so I'm going to come back to it now, and that was related to humanitarian missions. You mentioned the work that you did in El Salvador for a time between your tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I said, well, what do you want folks to know about the humanitarian side of the U.S. military in addition to obviously the combat operations that we do? So what would you say?
There's a lot of humanitarian missions that go on out there, especially what we did in El Salvador, but also you remember with the earthquake in Haiti and all over the United States, and it's great that not only we're a war-fighting entity, but we also give back as well.
During your tours, did you have a lot of opportunities to interact with the civilians in Iraq or Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, yes. Iraq, not so much.
What were those interactions like?
Working with the police chief, you get to work with the police officers of Afghanistan, which was kind of cool. what really comes to mind is whenever they brought out this dish of honeydew and how good it was. It's it was just, I can't say what transpired, but it's really funny. But it was good.
So the honeydew is the first thing you go for in the grocery store now that you're home?
No,
It's not.
I don't touch it.
What else do you want folks to know about the men you served with, those who are disabled and those who are not? You were in uniform for about 14 years, I guess, from 2001 to 2015. What do you think about most when you think about the guys you served with?
I'd do it all over again. Do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. James, it's an amazing story, and the fact that your service continues now with the National Park Service is absolutely fantastic as well. Thanks for sharing the story of the memorial. I think it's an area of Washington that a lot of folks are not aware of, and so when they make their plans, they always think of the presidential monuments and perhaps the World War II and Korea, like you mentioned, Vietnam Wall. That's another one to see as well over there up on Capitol Hill. So thank you for your service to our country, and thank you very much for your time with us today.
Thank you.
James Pierce is a veteran of both Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. He now works with the National Park Service and has had a special role in maintaining the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial as well. I'm Greg Corombos. This is Veterans Chronicles. Hi, this is Greg Corombos, and thanks for listening to Veterans Chronicles, a presentation of the American Veterans Center. For more information, please visit AmericanVeteransCenter.org. You can also follow the American Veterans Center on Facebook, and on Twitter, we're at AVC Update. Subscribe to the American Veterans Center YouTube channel for full oral histories and special features, and of course, please subscribe to the Veterans Chronicles podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and please join us next time for Veterans Chronicles.